Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's show. We are heading up to Alaska and we are really going deep into Alaska. We're actually going to St. Paul Island. It's up in the Aleutians and it's in the Bering Sea as we're going on a duck hunt. And this isn't just any ordinary duck hunt. We're going after the elusive king eider. There's only a few places in the whole world you can actually hunt these ducks, and I'll tell you, it has always been a bucket list trip. Hang on to your heinies, it's going to be a very, very cool trip. Hey, this is one of them trips where I'm actually filming it on my own. I'm not the best film guy in the world, I definitely admit that, but I didn't want to spend the extra money, which was a very expensive trip, and I didn't want to take the risk of having one of our camera guys come along and something happening. One of the first things we did, we got into Anchorage, Alaska, and we had an Airbnb and we went over to the fish market, and I'll tell you what, we had a feast like no other. I ate so much seafood that it was actually coming out of the pores of my skin for 2 days. If I don't see any more seafood for another year or two, I'll be absolutely fine. You really want to be prepared, and having the right gear is everything on this. And we're going to kind of go through a little bit of the gear that we took up there and really how you prepare yourself for these trips. We left 2 days early and we got into Anchorage, and so we had a full day and a half just to kind of explore Anchorage. So we went to a lot of the really cool shops that were there and ended up buying a few items there for my family, which was pretty cool, like things that you can't get anywhere else in the whole world. Just trying to get as much out of a trip as you possibly can get. This is a trip of a lifetime, like I said, very expensive trip, and you're not going to do it twice. You know, it's kind of a funny deal is that we took off from Anchorage and we're flying, and we get probably about a half hour out, and my stomach is turning like no tomorrow. And they're like, oh, we got to turn back around. He said, well, one of the door latches didn't lock all the way, and so we had to turn back and go back into Anchorage. And I'm like going, whew, I'm gonna make it. So obviously straight to the bathroom I went. I had nothing to do with that door latch. Don't look at me like that. Flying out of St. Paul back to Anchorage was probably one of the most crazy plane trips I've ever had. It was incredible. The plane landed on pure ice, and this is just a strip, like it's a non-manned airstrip. They landed on pure ice, came in, and I'll tell you, it was just sleeting and snowing like crazy. Another hour later, there's no way that plane would have even been able to get in there to pick us up, and we would have been probably stranded for at least 2 to 3 days in there. We hunted for 5 days on this island, and out of the 5 days that we hunted, we probably only hunted 6 hours. I'm just gonna say, the minute that we got to St. Paul and got to talk to the guides, I knew that it wasn't gonna be, as far as the guiding part, wasn't gonna be what I expected. And you really get a feel for guys when you get into camp. I don't know what was going on with these guys. It was definitely bad vibes as soon as we got there. I don't know if these guys were just burnt out or what the situation was. When we have a good winter, we'll run 90 days in a row. And by the end of the season, you're really exhausted. You're getting to that burnout stage. But this is something I always keep in my mind. The minute that I see my clients, I always remember this, is that this is their special day, and they don't care what's going on in my life. That's irrelevant to them. And I totally 100% understand that. And this was a situation where we came into camp, and right away I picked up on these guides that they were tired. And so you start gravitating towards other things. That the guys that we traveled with were amazing people. Like, we had so much fun, great conversations, just interaction with them. And then we met a lot of the natives that were on St. Paul Island there, and these people were very, very friendly. You know what? And so we got to interact with a bunch of them. And then seeing all the great scenery, seeing the Bering Sea, where you see 30-foot waves, you know, fur seals all over the place, just a lot of really cool things that you would have never seen anywhere else. So you really take something that you know is going to be kind of negative and you kind of got to look for something else that's positive to get you through the week. And that's exactly what happened. So I really, more than anything on this trip, I want to thank the guys that we traveled with. I mean, they were simply amazing, the way everybody held together in the conditions and the things that were happening there. And I want to thank the people, the natives that are on St. Paul Island. Them people were absolutely awesome. When we got into St. Paul, they came and picked us up at the airport, which was, maybe a mile, 2 miles away from where the village is. And we stayed in a pretty decent house. The accommodations were real nice, great beds, plenty of heat. There was a lot of soups eaten, and we did have a really good meal one night, and we ended up having prime rib, and it was absolutely excellent. So that part of it, the food part, I've been to Alaska on a few other trips where it's pretty much gourmet food, but again, I don't go on a trip because of the food. I go on a trip because I'm either want to catch something or I actually want to shoot something. The interesting part about going up to Alaska this time of year, you only have about 5 to 6 hours of actual light that you can really hunt in. So the days are very short. It didn't get light up there till almost 10 o'clock in the morning, and then pretty much by about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, it was already dark up there. So there was a lot of downtime. What do you do with the downtime, especially when you're severely ADHD? It was one of them things where this time I actually brought a book and I actually read a lot. And I'm not a huge reader, but I knew that I would have a lot of downtime, and I'm not a big card player like rest of the guys. Let's just say keep your sanity when you're on a trip like this, because there is so much downtime on that. There's not one single tree that's standing on this island at all. It's basically just grass. Only real animals that are on St. Paul Island are reindeer. There's a pretty good, herd of reindeer there, and they do a little bit of hunting on that. And there's foxes and a few birds on there, and of course, a lot of seals. Fur seals are extremely protected. These natives, I think they kill just over 100 a year. It's kind of a neat thing they do. They're the only ones that can touch the fur as far as do anything with it. I brought back a few things from there that I bought from some of the natives. As a citizen of the U.S., you can have fur seal, but it has to be made into something like a pair of mittens, a pair of choppers, some stuffed animals, a few other really cool things that they make there that I bought and obviously gave to my family. Very interesting just to be able to talk to the people that live there, and you kind of wonder, like, if you've never left this island, you really don't know, besides watching TV, what rest of the world is all about. I asked some of the natives, when somebody leaves St. Paul Island, how often do they come back? And he said less than 7% of the people, the young people that leave the island, ever come back to the island. So that was kind of interesting there. So there's one store on the whole island, and obviously things are very expensive there. Anything that really wasn't like real healthy food, like snacks and stuff like that, things that had a lot of sugar in them, were like probably 5 times more than they would be here in the States. But things that like every day that you would need, like milk and eggs, I really didn't think the price of that stuff was that bad. You're out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, but I was pretty surprised at how many different things they had there. So you definitely weren't going to starve. But the other part is that you were going to definitely pay for it. And you think about what it took to get that product to that store, it was definitely all well worth buying for sure. Like, I think a box of cereal was like $25, right? I mean, that's pretty expensive box of cereal. But if it's a box of Frosted Flakes, I would have paid $50 for it. My expectations as far as the hunting part were set a little bit higher until I got there, and then I kind of lowered my standards right away, but I still ended up getting a really, really absolutely beautiful king eider, and then I also shot a really nice harlequin too that I have to get mounted. There's very few places in the whole world where you can actually hunt king eiders, and because they're a big water duck. I mean, they like to dive super deep. They are very cool looking, and it's one of them kind of things too where you go and you're not going up there to shoot numbers of birds. This is one of them things where you can actually only shoot 4 of each species of sea ducks. That's all you can shoot. And I actually on the whole trip only ended up shooting and killing 2 ducks. That was it. The whole week, the whole 5 days that we hunted there. But again, that's what I went there to try to get a king eider. The harlequin that I got was, that was a bonus bird right there. It was kind of cool the way they do it is that obviously you're not anchoring anything down. You're running a long string of decoys out there and you're basically drifting with the current out there. And these birds see the decoys, they come swinging in and they start pulling up. And obviously you really are careful on the shots you take and make sure that what you're shooting at is the bird that you want. Again, you're there for 5 days and you're only allowed to shoot 4 king eiders. So you really are watching that specimen so you don't shoot immature birds. You try not to shoot a hen. I wasn't quite sure how big the seas were going to be because it's one of them things where when you go up to on a trip like that and the guide is telling you to make sure that you bring some kind of motion sickness pills like Dramamine or Bonine or whatever, a patches, whatever else you want to take, you kind of start thinking to yourself, even a guy like me that spends a ton of time pretty much every day on the water, right? Am I going to get motion sickness? It's one of them things that the first day I took some Dramamine and it really wasn't that bad. We were pretty fortunate when we were hunting that the winds were perfect for us and they were offshore winds. But when we went up to the other end of the island, you guys take a look at these waves up there. Like day number 2 on St. Paul Island, as you can see here, we're definitely not going to be open today. That's the kind of look issue. These waves are anywhere from 20 to 30 feet. It's cool to see these seals. These waves are just crashing up on the shore, and these seals, they come right up there and they're getting bounced around, rolled around into the rocks, and they come right up there. Like, they are so tough. It's just unbelievable how durable these animals are. It was kind of an interesting thing. So we're hunting on shore for a couple days because of the way the winds were, and a couple of seals actually came. We were just like sitting on the rocks. They came right up and got within probably about 10 feet, and then the guide that was behind us kind of jumped up and spooked them. So it would have been interesting to see how close they would have came to you. They were just kind of curious. They came up slow and they kind of were looking at you. Would I have taken one of them first seals back home if I could have got away with it? You bet your hiney I would have. I can't imagine letting him swim around in one of the ponds in the back right there with the aeration. Never have to worry about him freezing or getting cold, right? I mean, that would have been an absolutely perfect pet. And I would probably be one of the only people in the whole country, at least in Wisconsin, that would have a pet fur seal. The big thing about going up to a place like St. Paul is that that's where these ducks live. They live up on the Bering Sea like that. They're big water birds. They like the obviously when you're hunting them, they love that big water. So you have to have some place that you can go out of. And an island like St. Paul is right in the heart of where most of these birds spend their whole lives, right there. So you can go anywhere out on the Bering Sea pretty much and get them, but where are you going to come out of, right? We're only in like a 16-foot boat. There was a couple of the other guides that I saw that had like 12-foot boats. And when you think about that, some of these seas you're out in they're big rollers. They can be out to 20 to 30 feet. So we did hear of quite a few guys that got motion sickness in them smaller boats like that. Hey everybody, this week's tip of the week brought to you by our good friends up at Mike's Country Meats, the finest jerky on the planet. I'm usually very conservative when it comes to spending money on clothes. I spent some extra money and I got some really good gear, and I basically ended up getting myself a bunch of Sitka waterfowl gear, and it was well worth it. With that wind that we hunted in, and it's always damp and cold in Alaska, especially this time of year, having good gear and having light gear is no doubt worth the money. This week's tip of the week, again brought to you by our good friends up at Mike's Country Meats, the finest jerky on the planet. When you're flying into these places like this, we had a weight limitation. So you only get 50 pounds. So you got your waders, 3 boxes of shells, and a box of shells weighs about 2.5 pounds. 50 pounds of gear is not a lot of gear. I'm always afraid that there's not going to be enough food to eat. So I'm a huge snack guy. I actually brought 6 of the big packs of Milk Duds, and the Milk Duds actually carried me over in a lot of different situations there. So I was at like almost 3 pounds in Milk Duds too. So the other part is too, we didn't bring any guns up there at all. We rented the guns from the outfitter there. That was like $150, well worth it. For one thing, it's a hassle to go through the airport with your firearm. The salt water, absolutely, just even the mist can ruin your gun in no time at all. So every night that the guides were breaking these guns down to absolutely nothing, wiping them down and doing all that. The other part is for me, you know, obviously self-filming this, I had bought a new camera and I spent quite a bit of money on a real small camera. And what I did is trying to protect that camera from that salt water was another big thing, that it wasn't ruined. You don't think about that a lot when you're obviously from the Midwest and you're dealing with fresh water all the time. But when you're dealing with that salt that is so corrosive, that water, it's incredible. We only really got out in the boats the first 2 days we were there because of the wind. The winds were cranking all the time from, you know, anywhere from 30 to up to 60 miles an hour. It's the Bering Sea, right? I mean, you've seen the Deadliest Catch. It's always windy out there. I mean, for the most part, you know, lots of wind, big open expansive areas, obviously, and that's why we ended up hunting off of shore quite a bit too. For some reason, you know, there was some other outfitters there, but they went out pretty much every day in their boats, but our guys just did not feel comfortable about taking us out in that kind of conditions. And good or bad, I don't know. I'm not the guy that's going to you know, tell a guide what to do. I'm just there for the experience and try to get as much enjoyment as I can out of a trip like this. You know, what a cool part too to have my good friend Jeff Vandermortel next to me when we shot them Harlequins. You know, I got a Harlequin a few years ago up on Kodiak Island, but it wasn't as beautiful as this. I've got that one mounted, but it wasn't as beautiful as the one that I shot up on St. Paul right there. And it was a cool experience to have Jeff right there for the whole thing and backing me up on it. So again, that's what these trips are all about. You know, when you look at that, I think it's so important that when you go on a trip like this is to put really more emphasis on the enjoyment of the people that you're with and the experiences and the things that you get to see. There was no fishing there at all. They just didn't have the accommodations. They didn't have the boats to be fishing out there. I'm sure there was a ton of fish. You know, I seen the seals, you know, working stuff, and you know, we've seen fish jumping all around us, but that would be one of them kind of things I said to myself, I wish I would have somehow snuck a rod out and just as we were drifting with the decoys, just had some heavy weight on there in a piece of fish. I'll guarantee you I would have caught something, you know. But it's the first time I've ever gone to Alaska and not done any kind of fishing or not done any fishing at all.
It's almost like the days when you had a Harley and you were waving to the guy on a bike. You see another warrior on the water, you just get a good feel.
First class, all the way from the people that ride them to the people that make them.
They do such a nice job with communication. They'll pick up the phone anytime. It's really almost a friendship.
You could be in any state, and when somebody with a warrior drives by you, you get that honk, that beep. You're truly part of a family, and there's nothing like it.
Introducing Forever Barnwood. Transform your space with the warmth and character of a genuine barnwood look. Forever Barnwood offers over 200 authentic barnwood products. We are commercial and food safe. Our products are available in unlimited quantities while still providing the consistency you need to complete large projects. All of this while still looking like it came out of a 100-year-old barn. Forever Barnwood. Bring the history inside.
You know, I would say any other tips or advice on going on a trip of a lifetime, just to do your research as much as you can, the background on the guides that you're going with, the area, the logistics of what kind of conditions you're going to be dealing with. A lot of people do get motion sickness, you know, obviously be prepared for that. I can't imagine if you do get motion sickness and you're out on a trip where your opportunities are very limited. You might only get 1 or 2 days to actually hunt like we did on this trip right there. But so the last thing you'd want to be is be sick out there and not be able to enjoy the hunting. So again, kind of just being prepared and knowing the surroundings. And you know, the great part now about with social media and all the different avenues of that is that to do research on something, it just takes a matter of time, and you can pretty much see and figure out everything that you need to know. But you don't want to cut yourself short again on a trip like this. As far as you want to give yourself enough time to travel too. That's another big thing. You know, we had almost 2 days of travel on the front side of it, and another day and a half on travel on the back side of it to get back home. And when you take a trip like this, you have enough vacation time to be able to do it, and obviously let your employer know that there could be a slight chance that, like I was saying earlier, the weather would have been ahead another hour from what it was. There's no way that plane would have came in there and picked us up, and we definitely would have been stranded there for at least 2 to 3 more days. So that's probably the biggest thing about going to Alaska, and it's happened to me a couple times now where we have, you know, gotten stranded where the planes couldn't come in to pick us up, and we've been there for that extra couple days. And that's a tough part because, you know, these trips are really cool. Like, you're really super jacked to get there. Once the trip is over and you've accomplished what you went there for, it's time to come home. You're pretty anxious to get back home. So prepare yourself for all them kind of things too. And again, make sure you got enough money with you, and make sure you have enough things with you that you're going to be able to occupy a lot of downtime, right? That's the thing. Again, for me, maybe it's not a big deal to most people, downtime, sitting in the airport, sitting in hotels. For me, that's a very tough thing because, again, I'm used to like go all the time. So speaking of going, I'm gone. Hey everybody, like we do each and every week, we always want to thank all of our military men and women for the great service they have given this country and continue to give this country, along with all of our firefighters, paramedics, and no doubt all of our law enforcement agents. The biggest thing to remember, it is a great day to be alive. Hey, we'll see you guys and gals again next week, and thanks for joining us. So there's rumors on this trip, and I don't believe it, you know, because these guys somehow like to pick on me all the time. But there's rumors that on the flight from, you know, Appleton all the way up to Alaska, that I fell asleep and I was snoring extremely loud. I never heard anything. I think it's all BS, right? Vandermortal, I believe most of the things you say, but not all the things you say.